Aloha and good afternoon. Thank you for watching. This is Now. We begin with a live look at our nation's capital, where after a long day, there is finally a new Speaker of the House. Now, a short time ago, GOP leaders selected Louisiana Congressman Representative Mike Johnson to fill the position. This comes after weeks of infighting, and the little-known representative became the fourth nominee for the job last night, just hours after Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer withdrew his bid for the gavel. Natalie Brand has more.
Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson secured the Speaker's gavel on the first round of voting on the House floor.
Having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 118th Congress.
A win that follows weeks of GOP infighting. He was the fourth House Republican to be nominated for the job.
House Republicans and Speaker Mike Johnson will never give up.
Johnson, a member of Republican leadership, is currently serving in his fourth term in the House. He's also a Trump ally who voted to decertify the 2020 presidential election.
We're going to restore your trust in what we do here. You're going to see a new form of government, and we are going to move this quickly.
The development came after the third nominee for the job, GOP whip Tom Emmer, withdrew from the race after just hours. Some members said Emmer was too moderate. Former President Trump on social media called him a rhino or Republican in name only. Trump later urged the House GOP to back Johnson.
The question here is Mike Johnson the right guy at the right time? And I think he is. He's a good friend. He's a good man.
To me, it's not about personality. It's about getting back to our work.
For the past 3 weeks, the House has been unable to pass legislation with a budget deadline and government shutdown looming in mid-November. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Shortly after securing the vote, Johnson was sworn in to take his new role as Speaker of the House.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter. So help you God?
I do, so help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Speaker.
Former President Trump has been fined $10,000 over a comment he made outside of court in his New York civil fraud trial. According to the Associated Press, a judge concluded that the former president had violated a limited gag order in his civil fraud trial. It was the second time in less than a week that former President Trump was penalized for his comments outside of the courtroom. Before imposing this latest fine, Judge Arthur Engoron summoned former President Trump from the defense table to testify about his comment to reporters just hours earlier about a person who's very partisan sitting alongside the judge. Trump and his lawyers insisted this comment Wednesday was about witness Michael Cohen and a former Trump lawyer and not about the clerk. We turn now to the latest news overnight here on Oahu. A shooting seriously injured a man in downtown Honolulu. It happened near the area of Nu'uanu Avenue and Hotel Street. EMS crews were called to the scene at around 12:45 a.m. That's where they treated a 31-year-old man. He was wounded in his upper torso. The man was brought to the hospital in serious condition. No details yet on an HPD investigation or a suspect in the case. Meanwhile, an attempted murder investigation is also underway after another shooting in Kalihi. It happened just after midnight in the area of Iwilei Road and Kuvili Street. Police say the male victim was shot by a pair of men but refused to cooperate with officers when asked what happened. A former Hawaii Island assistant police chief has been charged with violating a restraining order, attempted burglary, and assault. Mitchell Kanehailau Jr. is accused of trying to break into his ex-girlfriend's home this past Sunday in Kailua Kona. Kanehailau Jr. is being held on $9,000 bail. His preliminary hearing is set for this Thursday. And new details today on a bad crash in Nanakuli involving a moped. It happened around 7:30 last night. Police say the 58-year-old female moped driver was hit when she was trying to exit Electric Beach Park onto Farrington Highway. Witnesses told police it seemed that she did not look before cutting across all lanes of the road. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The driver of the car did remain at the scene and was not hurt. Well, the state has revised its emergency housing proclamation yet again. One major change restores county council oversight over most affordable housing projects. Environmental and community groups are now satisfied enough to hold off on legal challenges.
We're willing to withdraw our lawsuit for now and take a wait-and-see approach.
Now that we're seeing these things, these protections coming back, we're not saying we're comfortable, but we're always vigilant and we're always paying attention.
In a statement, the Hawaii Public Housing Authority said this update builds upon the positive impacts of the previous emergency proclamations, particularly in supporting the Kale Momi initiative, which aims to construct 12,000 affordable housing units. We turn now to Maui, where our Chelsea Davis shares the stories of the 911 dispatchers who were on the other side of the cries for help the day the wildfires destroyed Lahaina.
They're oftentimes overlooked and underappreciated, but many consider them the first responders. These heroes wear headsets. And again, we must warn you, the calls you're about to hear are disturbing.
911, what is your emergency?
They're always there to answer the call.
Hi, I'm calling Honolulu.
In the most desperate.
We're trapped in Kahua, man. Yeah, we're trapped, man. It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot. So we need somebody like now.
And sometimes final moments.
The people are going to die.
They try everything.
We gotta find some way to get to the ocean.
And anything to help.
Get out of the car and run.
They're usually the calm to the chaos.
Okay, Grandma, I'll give him a call, but is there any way that you can get out or away from the house?
But August 8th...
Oh my God, our entire island is burning from the east to the west.
Good luck, guys. Going down.
Was something no one had ever experienced before.
It finally, I think, hit us when we got that first 1015 button. That emergency button that our officers and our firemen can press if they are in an emergency situation. When we heard that call, and we quickly heard the Mayday call, that was, I think at that moment, for us, it hit home.
A fire captain lost consciousness and was suffering life-threatening injuries.
I looked around the room and everyone, tears coming out of their eyes and still doing their job. There was no time to give up, walk away, take a break. None of that.
Nilia Johnson, a Maui native, has been a dispatcher for 15 years.
Some of us had children missing that were working in Lahaina. Some of us had family members that we didn't hear from and that live out there. Some of us, we knew we had first responders, officers and firemen that were working there and losing their homes and not knowing where their families were. We even had dispatchers that lost loved ones that day.
Davelyn Ricardio is Maui County's Emergency Services Dispatch Coordinator. Born and raised on Maui and has been a dispatcher for 36 years. She was in Nashville when the disaster hit home.
I was looking at technology that could help our department and the state of Hawaii. I kept calling home to make sure they're okay. Called my husband to make sure he goes and feed my people. I said, nobody's gonna think about them because everybody's fighting the fire, so can you please take care of them.
Dispatchers took over 4,500 calls that day. That's almost triple the amount of calls on a normal day. At the height of the crisis, there were 9 dispatchers working. That's more than double than what they started with.
I had one girl who was on maternity leave, left her baby home with her mommy so she could come in and help us answer calls to help the community. We had others that left our department that's working in other areas in the county, that their supervisors allowed them to come in and help us.
Unlike Honolulu and Hawaii Island, these Maui County dispatchers answer calls for police, fire, and medics. And they're the only ones in the state that answer calls for 3 different islands: Maui, Molokai, and Lanai.
It's a special kind of person that can take those kind of calls in, especially like what we saw on August the 8th.
Councilwoman Yukile Sugimura is a champion for dispatchers. She's been fighting to increase their pay and has been advocating for them to be officially recognized as first responders, not as clerks, which is how they're classified now.
They're the first call that comes in, and they're not clerical, and they're dealing with, a very important role that they play to saving lives.
Can you please send someone to my mom's house? I have 10 babies over there.
And although they save many lives, most people don't even know their name.
911? You got help? We're in the car.
And they rarely get a thank you. But that's not why they do it. They continue to show up to work day after day.
911, what is your emergency?
Answer call after call because they know they make a difference in the community. In their community. Maui County is hiring 911 dispatchers. If you're interested in doing this job, you are encouraged to apply. We have a link on how you can do so on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com. Reporting in Wailuku, Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for that in-depth report. Well, yesterday on Spotlight Now, we sat down with Honolulu Police Chief Arthur Joe Logan and Honolulu Prosecuting Attorney Steve Alm. Here's some of that conversation.
We're trying everything we can. We are focused right now on game rooms, and there's a lot of narcotics and illegal drug use and gambling going on around those game rooms. So that's one way to help curb it, but how do we shut down game rooms that are kind of a center for crime and drug use? And so that's one way to look at how we do that. Our federal partners are helping us with the infiltration of drugs through either airlines or mailing drugs into the United States or into the state of Hawaii, and more specifically city and county. So how do we curb that? And I think we're doing a good job.
We talked to the chief about the rates of crimes, and he did say that across the board they are seeing a large decline. What are the areas that concern you most right now?
Well, and it's true. If you ask the person on the street, they'll say crime's up. But it's down in Hawaii like 30%. I mean, for the last 30 years. The numbers are about half what they were in the 90s. What concerns me most, and the murder rate actually is lower this year so far, and you don't want to botchy this, right? We're 3/4 of the way through the year. It's lower. The scary part is out of the 14 murders so far, and last year there were in the 20s, 6 of them were on the Waianae Coast. And so that is something that really gets everybody's attention. And in many cases, people knew each other, which is no excuse for it. But people are using guns too often. If they're going to fight, but don't use guns, because that can lead to, even more problems.
And of course, Spotlight Now airs right here on Hawaii News Now, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. Let's send you outside for a live look through the eyes of our tower cam. It is a beautiful sunny day over Honolulu. Our temperature in the low 80s, a hot day, of course, as we enter closer and closer into Halloween. Coming up after this short break, our Emily Cristobal and Drew Davis will have a closer look at a recent brown water advisory that was posted for parts of the state. Stay tuned.
extreme drought for a handful of spots on Hawaii Island. The entire island is at least under moderate drought. And then the same for West and South Maui. They've got extreme drought there. We've got severe drought for our leeward side. And don't forget, these severe to extreme drought areas are very fire prone right now. So be very, very careful out there. We do not want a brush fire because it would spread very quickly because of the dry conditions out there. So it's going to be humid with pop-up showers today, tomorrow, and to some extent Friday. And those trade winds start to come back on Friday, but they'll be running at moderate speeds on Saturday and Sunday, which means lower humidity levels, going to feel quite comfortable. We're still going to see lots of sunshine with very little rain. And for Halloween, things are shaping up to be quite nice, although it might be a little sticky with those slower winds.
Thank you so much, Guy, for that forecast. To talk more about a recent brown water advisory, here's Emily Cristobal and First Alert meteorologist Drew Davis.
Aloha. Now we're joined by Drew Davis, our First Alert weather meteorologist, to talk about a brown water advisory that was issued for Kauai. Drew, I was wondering if you could just walk us through what exactly the brown water advisory is and why it was issued.
Aloha, Emily. Thanks for having me on. So we do have a brown water advisory that's been issued for parts of Kauai. The reason this was issued, we did have some heavy rainfall that came through. We had a cold front move across the northwestern portions of the island chain Monday night into early Tuesday morning. In the Garden Isle, especially Kauai, saw a lot of rainfall come down over the last 36 hours, 48 hours. And all of that rainfall, as we're transitioning out of the dry season and into the wet season, when we see heavier rainfall events like this, all of the grime, all of the dirt that's built up in the dry season has been allowed to run off of the ground, run off into coastal waters. And that's why we're seeing the brown water advisory right now across parts of Kauai, northwest, west, north, and east Kauai as well are seeing those brown water advisories. This is being previously recorded, so those may have changed, but it's still a good practice to be careful if you see brown water out there.
Absolutely. And, you recently did some reporting about the wet season, and while it will be drier, can you talk a little bit about if more brown water advisories could be issued in the coming future?
Yeah, absolutely. So the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration released their wet season outlook. So that goes from October 2023 all the way until April 2024, and they're forecasting for less rainfall than average for this upcoming wet season here in Hawaii. However, as we're transitioning out of the dry season and into the wet season, we're still going to see heavy rainfall events like we saw Monday night into Tuesday. And with the dry season, we don't see as much rain, more grime, more dirt, more fecal matter, more bacteria can build up on land. And when that happens, first heavy rainfall event of the season, there's going to be more of that dirt that can flow into the ocean, flow into coastal areas, causing more brown water advisories. That's what we're seeing right now, especially as we head into wet season. We can continue to see these brown water advisories. More dirt flows into coastal areas. So it's just something that we're watching. I know that I mentioned that less rainfall is expected in this wet season. I don't want to diminish that we're still going to see heavy rainfall events, although total rainfall is expected to be less than average.
And, talking about brown water advisories, that's not something that people in Hawaii are unfamiliar with. We've definitely seen them around Oahu and the other islands as well. But can you stress some of the dangers of possibly swimming in this brown water?
Yeah, so obviously lots of bacteria can grow in the brown water. The best practice to stay safe from something like this is if you see brown water, just don't go into it. It's not safe. It's just unhealthy, especially if you have an open wound or something like that. The bacteria could get into it. Again, this could be anywhere between dangerous bacteria to fecal matter to anything that's just very, very dangerous for your health. It's a good idea not to go swimming in it, especially with these brown water advisories. Give it a little bit of time to wash out of those areas.
Absolutely. And, just for my final question, just wondering, how long do these brown water advisories usually last?
So I would say that they can last a couple of days. There's a couple up across the island chain right now that have been sitting for 4 to 5 days right now. There's one on the western parts of Hawaii Island. The one that we're talking about right now, though, were just issued on October 24th, so Tuesday, for Kauai. So give it about a week, especially if we have a high surf event come in. It can help flush out a lot of that, the bacteria and a lot of the brown water. So they can, especially when we're seeing the low surf, not a lot of strong winds, you're not getting that mixing that you need in the ocean. So it can sit for a while, and especially with the weather pattern we have right now, kind of light winds, it'll probably stay around for a while. But if you have strong winds, we're going to see the trade winds return this weekend. It'll help flush it out a little bit better. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on to, break this all down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Back to you guys.
Now to some news from the feeds. Most Americans think climate change is going to get worse and force them to make changes to their own lives. Of more than 8,800 adults Pew Research surveyed, nearly half of them said they think they'll have to make minor sacrifices during their lifetimes due to climate change. And about a quarter said they think they'll have to make major sacrifices. Partisanship appeared to be the biggest differentiator. 86% of those surveyed Democrats said they expect climate impacts to worsen, but only 37% of Republicans agreed. People expect conditions to worsen the most in coastal Florida, Southern California, and the Southwest. This marks the first time Pew has asked people if they expect climate change to impact their lives. Previous surveys focus on climate change policy and proposes solutions. This week in the Roman Catholic Church will go down in history. For the first time ever, women are voting at a Vatican synod. This year's gathering of bishops also includes nuns, laymen, and laywomen, all with a voice. That alone is historic, but this week, participants are formally voting on church matters. The National Catholic Register says the full body is reviewing a summary report Wednesday. It'll go through days of revisions and is expected out this weekend as the, quote, letter to the people of God. The synod's also noteworthy for touching on sensitive topics like ordination of women, marriage of priests, and LGBTQ plus equality. And it's not over this weekend. This year's letter is expected to lay the groundwork for another meeting next year. And some consumer news you may not want to hear, especially if you're fans of Ted Lasso and The Morning Show. Watching those shows are about to cost you more. Apple is raising the price of its Apple TV Plus streaming service. The hike brings it to $10 a month or $99 for a year. That's up $3 from $7 a month or $30 more if you pay for an entire year. The last time prices went up was a year ago, and before that, prices were steady for 3 years. Apple does not disclose how many people subscribe to Apple TV. This is the latest streaming service to raise prices this year, following suit of Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max, and pretty much the entire streaming industry. Well, we never like to hear about those streaming prices increases, but let's go ahead and give you some good news now. Of course, Halloween is just around the corner, and here's a fun little contest for you to enter. That's right, you can get into the spirit with the third annual This Is Now costume contest, which is sponsored by International Marketplace. You can submit your photo right now at hawaiinewsnow.com. The deadline to enter is 10 a.m. this Friday. Now, the finalists will be announced right here on This Is Now on Friday and posted on the Hawaii News Now Instagram page, where the public will then vote for their favorite costumes. The top 3 winners will then be announced the following show on next week, Tuesday, on Halloween. Don't miss out on your chance to win some awesome prizes from International Marketplace. And again, the deadline to enter is 10 a.m. this Friday. Let's go ahead and take a look one more time. These were some costumes from last year. Adorable Pa'u princess in front of Iolani Palace. So creative what these people come up with. The Menehune water, just iconic. We can't wait to see what you all come up with this year. So please find some more details on hawaiinewsnow.com. We're going to be posting more on our website and our social media platforms. That's going to do it for us here in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. I'm Dylan Ancheta, and I thank you so much for watching This Is Now. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Aloha.